Hey, welcome back everybody, and we're going to start putting the transmission together. But before we do, we want to explain some of the things about how these transmissions work. And my very first time doing this, it took me 12 tries. You can imagine, it took several hours, but 12 tries to get the transmission together where it would actually shift through the gears. And that was a pretty good moment, but I didn't give up. So I'm going to share some of that knowledge and experience with you today. You can see right here is where the 4 shift rods go. Okay, this is the 1-2 shift rod, the 3-4. This is the reverse, and then this is the 5th gear shift rod. Okay, so there's a little groove cut in there to let fluid flow out as that shift rod moves down. And what happens is as one shift rod, it either moves down to engage first gear in this case, or up to engage second gear. It pushes a pin over, and that pushes a pin that goes through this rod over. That pushes a pin that goes through this rod over, and then this rod, and then it pushes into a detent on this side, and that's what keeps the transmission from slipping out of gear. So all of these are locked, while this one here is free. And as you put it down into neutral, all those rods are free to move back and forth. So let's show you how that works. So we have a little detent here on this one, and we have these chubby little pins go right in these slots here, 1, 2, and 3. All right, and then we have some small pins, and those actually go through a couple of the shift rods. So we have the detent. And so in neutral, this will be riding right along this shaft, but as it may be just down in the groove right there a little bit. And then as this is pushed up, of course, it would slide out of that groove. The rod would push this out of the groove, and it would push this over slightly. And then that pushes on this pin, which goes in this rod, which pushes on this one. See, this one would go here in the second slot right there. Okay, and then that pushes on this rod, which has this pin. Now on this Isuzu based GM transmission, you do not want to get this pin and this pin mixed up, because this one is very slightly shorter, just maybe 20 or 30 thousandths shorter. The reason why it's shorter is because on this rod, the pin goes directly through the center of the rod. Okay, and on this one, it goes through, let's see here, goes to one side. You can see how you can see both sides there. So that one has to be just slightly shorter. Okay, did I say slightly enough? All right, so this pushes on this pin, and this pin pushes through this hole, this shorter pin. And you can see that with the naked eye, by the way, between these two. You can see it, but you have to look very close. Okay, and then that pushes on this little guy, and this little guy goes in a detent right inside there. That little detent right on the inside there. If you can see that right there. And that effectively locks all those out. So whenever you shift into third or fourth, you move the shift selector, or the gear shift, to a neutral position. That frees up all these pins, and they could all move. And then you move the shifter forward, and then this rod would slide up, and this pin was not doing anything. It would just go idle. It's just going to set in there. You can see there's like a recess that it sets in, that this thicker pin can ride in. Whenever that slides up, this sets in the recess. But because this, let me grab hold of it, because this was setting just slightly inside there, as the rod moves up, it's pushed this way. And the same thing with the one on this side, it's pushed that way, and that locks this gear shaft, and also locks these ones out. Now, this is the cover plate that goes on here. After we get all that in there, that goes like that, just like so. And what all this does is it just holds everything down in, and it keeps these little pins here from flying out. So that's all that really does. And also it does hold this, which is the reverse actuating lever. Okay. If we move over here, we can see our we have two shift forks here, and then this one here. This moves up and down on one of the shafts, and this is our 3/4 selector, and this is our 1/2 selector. And you have to watch these for a little bit of wear right here. Of course, these are the bolts that hold everything down. We have an extra pin there. And we have this little pin right here, this little guy. Don't want to lose that guy, because this is a reverse idler gear carrier. Okay. And it's got a relief on this side. This goes out on this side. Actually goes in, I'm sorry. Goes in. Goes like that. And it's notched like this to clear the gear cluster that's over here. Okay. And then on this side, what keeps this from turning, because this would be free to turn, is this little pin right here. This little pin. So that pin goes in here. Goes in there. And that's what keeps that from turning. Now that's only used during the initial assembly. It keeps that from turning during the initial assembly. What keeps it locked into place is on the back side, there's a place for a bolt right there. And that bolt has a pointed end on it, and I'll show you that whenever we assemble this. I'm going to turn this around here to find out where that's at. And it goes right here. It goes right here. That bolt goes right through here, and this is where that bolt would enter this reverse idler shaft. And you can imagine the gears, okay, they're spinning around. The input shaft would be here, and then you have a counter shaft here. So this would be turning one direction, this would be turning another direction, and that is actually what drives the ring gear in the in the other direction. So we'd have counterclockwise, clockwise, and then it would drive this counterclockwise, and vice versa. Okay, so we need that reverse idler gear, because what that does is it locks out. These pins will be locked out, so you can't put it in first, second, third, fourth, or fifth. You can only have it in reverse. And then because you're trying to get it to go in the opposite direction, you have to have an idler gear here. And what that does is it engages that gear, and as this one goes this way, the idler gear would go that way, and this gear would go the other direction. So this way, that way, and then this one here would go this way. So that allows the car to move in reverse. I hope I explained that where it's logical. But to assemble this, we're going to use an oil-based lubricant. I like to use the 3-in-1 oil. I don't use WD-40 because it's water-based. I don't want anything like that inside here. And I picked this up at Napa. It's an assembly lube. It's real sticky. And for holding things like these pins in place, it works really good. So you just take your finger, just swipe a little bit of that stuff in there, stick your pins in there, and then they're not going anywhere. But to assemble this, and I'll show you, we have to actually do it kind of one or two rods at a time, because whenever I put that rod down in, it's going to want to push those pins over. So we have to kind of get everything ready and kind of finesse it down in. This is probably the hardest part of doing this. It takes the most patience. So once you get everything down in, I'll take a flat screwdriver and kind of push these pins down. That will push all these pins that go in here over, in this one and this one, over to their neutral position, and then we'll slide the plate down on and then bolt the plate on. And at that point, we're actually ready to put the input in the shaft and the counter shaft in. So like I said, this is the trickiest part. Once you get that done, it almost flies together. It's ridiculously easy. So so hopefully I explained this where you guys can understand it. There is This is, I didn't take this piece here apart, but you can see what that looks like. This is where your shifting arm would come down and grab hold and move this up or move this down. So we'll show you all that once we get the thing together. We'll show you how it shifts and everything. I do have, there are some dowel pins that go in here. I have the one out of this one, so this can actually foot free, because that has to go, this little bump right here, that has to go right in here. And it's easier if this is loose. There's actually a cotter pin that holds this in, so I leave this all kind of loose so I can maneuver that around a little bit. I don't take this pin all the way out. It's a bear to get in, but I will take it out like that just a little bit so I can move this around and finagle that little stub into here so they can move that as you move the shifter. So hopefully you'll stick around for the next episode. It's not bad once you understand how this works. The only tricky part is right here. Once you get past that, it literally falls together. There's a couple of things you have to watch out for later on, but it's nothing crazy. You'll see in the follow-up videos, but we are gonna take our time and get this part done. Like and subscribe. See you next time.